Good morning, welcome to Enduro 360. I'm your host, Chili White. Well, our 8-day adventure bike ride has finished up back home here in beautiful Escondido. So let's talk a little bit about our 2012 KTM 990. Great trip, man. We had such a great time on this trip. 8 days on the road. On the specific trip, I put on just right at 2,400 miles. In total, I've got about 2,700 miles on this bike now. You may have seen we had one little mechanical issue during the middle of the trip. Had to go in and get some repairs from our buddies at Carson Motorsports in Carson City. But they took good care of us, and we were actually back on the road very quick, and it was good. I don't know why I've tested these bikes the last 3 years now. This is the best running one. This thing runs really well. Motor is just very torquey, like out on the highway doing a pass, don't have to downshift, just roll on the throttle and go. So I've had a super good time. The mileage we put on, I've got about 500 dirt miles on now, and you know, every year when I get on one of these, it's a learning experience. You know, I start off, I'm kind of timid, and after a couple of days, it just feels like a motorcycle. And by the last day, I was telling myself I had to back off just a little bit because I was actually having too much fun and maybe forgetting just how big this bike was. But no issues, kept her upright the whole time. Let's take a look at a couple of things real quick on the bike. We talked about before the trip the tires we put on. Turns out our tire choices were just perfect for the time. The 908 here in the rear, and again, these now have 2,400 miles on them. And I will admit that because I knew it was going to be a long trip, I was really being careful with the rear tire, trying not to spin it up too much in the dirt, and not going too fast on the pavement, keeping the speeds down to about 70. Our 606 in the front, actually, the tire worked extremely well. I was really happy with it on this bike. You can see kind of the irregular wear there, but most of that came from kind of blasting back home from bend on the pavement. So for what we needed, it was just perfect. Really happy with that. This is really the first time I've spent a lot of dirt miles with a knobby tire on the front, and man, what a difference just in the confidence level for me. Really just had a blast the whole time. You know, we had a couple of days of just doing a lot of big open fire roads, third gear, winding around, and where the big bike really comes into its own, and just a lot of fun to ride there. We talked about, I put the giant loop bags on for this trip. They worked perfect. They mount up really well on the 990. You can see they're up off the exhaust real well, no problems. That worked out really well. The only issue I kind of ran into with these is you kind of want to really sort out your packing idea before you get on the road, because once you've got this stuff full, and I had it absolutely full, it's a little bit of a challenge to get in there and kind of dig things out. What I really needed for this trip was a tank bag. Just someplace to put all those things I want to get to during the day. You know, my sunglasses, my phone, the camera equipment, all that kind of stuff. And maps, of course. But overall, real happy with those bags. It was just, we had a couple of days where we were literally like winding down the road and up the trail through the trees. It was nice not to have to worry about having the big hard cases on there to whack. Speaking of maps, you can see I talked a little bit about the new Garmin 62 I've got here. Super happy with this thing. It's really working out well. Basically, this is kind of the replacement model for the venerable 60, and somewhat more also for the 76. One of the things that was always a knock on the 60 was how the ram mount worked. This is a far more secure mount. Pretty much the same as I've got on my Lowrance, and never had any problems with it. So good setup on the ram mount. It's lightweight, it's inexpensive, it's easy to use. The primary features of the 62, particularly compared to the 60 or the 76, quite a bit easier to navigate, much more intuitive, and very, very much simplified, and much easier to read screen. Better color, better contrast on the screen. So yeah, definitely worked out well. I just downloaded a couple of topo maps from GPS File Depot, so I had California, Nevada, and Oregon on there, and was really good. Got my double take mirror on here on one side and the stock mirror on the other, because, hey everybody, there we are in the mirror. Because I was going to do so much highway mileage on this trip, I wanted to make sure I had good mirrors on there. So the stock mirror kind of accomplishes that, and then when we got doing just a full dirt day, I'd yank that off and just run with a double take, fold it down when we got in the dirt. In fact, one of the other guys I was riding with commented how he smacked himself against the mirrors a couple of times while we were out. You know, I'm always buying this cheap stuff off eBay. I bought a little 12-volt plug for the GPS to run so I'd have a hardwired power. Well, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. That got about a day and a half of use before it was just intermittent flashing on and off the whole time. So just threw the NiCad batteries, or no, the lithium batteries into the GPS there, and they're good for about 3 days that way. That's about it. Bike, man, this bike is so much fun to ride. Every time we do this, I think I gotta ride adventure bike stuff more. On the highway, the screen's a little bit of a pain because it really, I mean, that's just a perfect buffeting area there. I literally would almost rather take it off and run without it. I see a lot of guys run one that's a little steeper angle and a little shorter that might help that out some. Did some nighttime running down the highway. Yeah, the lights are okay, but KTM definitely needs to step it up a little bit more when it comes to the lighting on all of their bikes. And of course, that brings us to the news you may have already seen. Here we are talking about, this is a 2012 model. The 2013s on the big bikes don't typically come out till later in the year. Now we've got the news of the new 1190 replacement for the Adventure series. That was one of the big topics. Pictures leaked out this week. It was actually a quote KTM leak. Apparently it was an accident, but they're the real deal from KTM, so check that out on the site. This bike is going to change a lot. It is going to be much more of a BMW GS type bike, and really clearly designed to go more head to head with that. If you're looking to go put your money down on a new 1190, don't get in a big hurry. One place I read said maybe March of 2013. Something else I saw said maybe even later than that. So once we get later in the build year, that means it might actually be a 2014 model. So we'll talk about that lots as time comes up. But that's kind of it for now. Our trip to Bend for the KTM Adventure Rally was just a huge success. We had a great time. So many fun people up there. As always, folks from KTM took good care of me. It was nice to be back in my old hometown of Bend. Got to lead a group around and kind of show guys where I grew up learning to ride a motorcycle out in the desert of Eastern Oregon, Central and Eastern Oregon. So it's a blast. As always, having a great time on the road. And now I got tons of work waiting for me when I get back. For a guy who doesn't have a job, I sure am busy. So there we go. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch up with you next time.